a beer which is costing like 100 rupees in Mumbai. So say for example 20 rupees is a tax, the same beer possibly in one of the other states in southern India like a Tamil Nadu will be far more expensive.
But what are the problems that this has created? It's an inequality, but it's created an opportunity for crime, for corruption.
How is the market for Indian products in Taiwan and China?
It's getting popular because whiskey drinkers want to try different kind of a good quality whiskey. They would like to spend more but drink less. So they would like to try the good quality stuff. It means Indian single malt quality is good.
Is it profitable to be in business today in the Alcobev industry in your respective countries?
Hi and welcome to another episode of Expert Talk with me, Bhavya Desai. Now today's roundtable conversation is a very interesting one because it involves some of the most renowned experts in the Alcobev industry from different countries. Now these guys are also the jury members of Ambrosia Awards 2025, and in their respective countries and globally they're some of the most sought after, some of the most renowned experts that they are. Now, in this conversation, we've had so many different nuances. We've actually discussed about international markets vis-a-vis the Indian markets. Also, what makes products, Indian products, really popular abroad as well. Also, if you as a manufacturer or as an individual want to export your products to different countries, then what's the best route to go? We've of course also discussed a lot of challenges and opportunities in the Indian Alcobev market. All of this from a very global perspective of how these guys view the Indian markets. So, very interesting conversation. Do let me know in the comments what you thought about it. Please share this conversation with everybody that you might know who might find it interesting. Of course, as usual, if you like our work, then please subscribe to our channel. Do look us up on Instagram as well. And until next time, see you in the next one.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Expert Talk with Bhavya Desai. I'm very excited about today's conversation. The reason is because not often do you get a collective and wealth of such experience on a same sort of a platform in terms of a conversation. And the idea and the objective actually today is for me to create a conversation which helps a lot of our viewers, both internationally as well as in India, to draw an example of what it is like in terms of the Alcobev markets abroad and vis-a-vis how is it that they are in India. So I want to use this as an opportunity from your experience from different parts of the region to give all of those viewers, both industry consumers and all of these guys, an opportunity to know how it works there. So let's start with just introducing you, Julie, if you can.
Yes, my name is Julie, and very happy to come here to share alcohol information from my market, Taiwan and mainland China. And I wish all people Happy New Year, 新年快乐!
Great. Can you just also tell us what is it that you do, so that just a couple of lines?
Okay. I do several jobs related about the alcohol business. One, I'm an importer for mainland China and Taiwan and Hong Kong market. And I also build up a distillery in Taiwan. And I also do some international job, just like this time with all the people.
Understand. Great. Bernhard?
Well, my name is Bernhard Schäfer. I'm from the wonderful city of Nuremberg, which is in the northern part of Bavaria, which is also the area with the highest beer breweries in the world, the highest density of beer breweries.
Right.
And I'm an expert in all kinds of spirits, especially whiskey, cognac, rum, and gin. And I'm writing about it. I'm helping companies to develop new products, or sometimes due my connections, I'm helping somebody to sell something there or over there. So that's basically what I do.
Awesome.
I'm Steve Beal, international drinks consultant now, although retired after 20 years with the world's largest alcohol bev company. And I spend my life traveling around, bringing people together, kind of as a nexus for the Alcobev industry.
Well, yeah. My name is Katsuhiko Tanaka. I came from Tokyo, Japan, and I'm running a company. And my company is started in 1925. It's established by my grandmother. That is very unusual. It's a lady started 1925, and there's 3 generations. And also, it's also living in Tokyo. It's over 3 generations. And I myself have some company. It's both it's importer and distributor, and also IT company, and also we are making rum in south of Japan. It's we are distiller as well.
Great. Okay. Great wealth of experience. One, all of you, of course, experience and not just whiskey judges, but it's great to see also the business side of the Alcobev Industries from different parts of the world. Whiskey Hall of Famer, one of the leading judges in the international circuit. So what I want to first start off with is how are the markets currently in your respective countries? Steve, if you can just start with you. And then I want all of you guys to chime in as well.
Right now, like the rest of the world, we're a little uncertain. We've had a really strong spirits market until the COVID epidemic, and now things have weakened. People are changing their drinking patterns, moving towards different kinds of experiences. Culturally, younger people are taking a different take on drinking and enjoying adult beverages than their ancestors. So lots of changes going on. We're not quite sure where that's going. I think it's going in a great direction myself. Responsible drinking, choices, lots of choices. There are more choices in the Alcobev industry today than ever before. Hundreds of new brands, whiskeys, gins, vodkas, even non-alcoholic drinks. Huge numbers of choices. And I think it's right now a lot of balls in the air trying to figure out what's going on.
That's an interesting take because definitely that's a product category that I want to talk about because no alcohol and zero alcohol category is something which in India has also started taking off quite a bit, and also because of a lot of the younger generation now looking at sort of a more fitness, sort of a sustainable journey. So that's a conversation for sure. We juggle back to that. Bernhard, how's it going in Europe?
As you mentioned, this non-alcoholic drinks thing, I mean, it's also a concern in Germany. For example, you see that the whole world thinks Germany is #1 nation for drinking beer. In fact, the most thing we drink is water, and the second is coffee. So beer ran down, but the non-alcoholic beers, they are going up. And different to non-alcoholic spirits, which aren't spirits, of course, these beers taste like beer. Because if you have a zero gin, well, I don't like it. I think I don't say the word, and I don't see a reason why I should have a gin and tonic with some basically herbal tea in it, instead of alcohol. But we have the same. People are more considerate about health, as meanwhile everybody knows alcohol is not good for you. So people think more about this aspect of life.
But do you think that's also primarily people who are kind of old school? People who have, because it's a generational thing as well. For instance, somebody who's been having some of these products and judging some of these products for a long time, they obviously have a certain aspect in mind, but the newer generation was never exposed to those things. They've kind of come up and woken up and they have seen products which are available like this.
It's both. So people in my generation, for example, of course, they still drink for fun, or some educated drinkers who really celebrate an expensive bottle of whiskey or cognac or whatsoever. And the younger people, yes, they have. I mean, what people also don't think of is in Germany, it's totally legal to drink beer at the age of 16. At the age of 14, when your parents are around, that's right. In Bavaria, you go in a restaurant, pub, no problem. Yeah. So, but this has gone down a little bit in the last year. So the younger, and also the rate of smoking is going down, and I think it's a whole complex, and people think about, what shall I eat? Is it good for my health, or does it taste good? So it's a multi-complex thing, and it's general. I think it's a general thing in Western Europe.
Yeah, I think it's also in Japan. It's also young people less and less drinking, and also it's non-alcohol. It's market growing. But the other side is also young people is interesting about the malt whiskey, a single malt, and also it's in Japan. It's now it's 120. It's distillery there, and last 2 years 50 distillers came to the market. So, yeah.
50 new distilleries. And what are they?
Now it's 120
Altogether?
And, altogether, and whiskey.
Whiskey.
And whiskey, whiskey, and most whiskey around it was on there. So, and the last 2 years, 50 is there new distillers in there. So, it's but also it's such kind of new distillery running, also young people as well.
Mhm.
So, it's the people very interesting about quality and interesting such kind of like craft.
Mm.
So it's I think it's a market
Right.
is more quality.
I want to kind of come down to like the young people a little bit later on. I actually want to just draw the narrative to try and understand where the general Alcobev markets are currently in your countries. The reason is because I have like, I want to kind of give an idea and a picture of what it is like in India right now as well. So, while of course young people is great, but G, if you could just kind of give us an idea of where the Chinese and Taiwanese market is today.
Because after COVID, people change their lifestyle a lot.
Mm.
People more focused in healthy subject, and they are not necessary to go out have a social life.
Mm.
Their social life they can build up in the internet, and they feel satisfied. So especially have some social media. If you get drunk, they will post some ugly photo. They are not care about it, so they less drink or they drink low alcohol
Mm.
stuff or non-alcohol stuff. So lifestyle changing,
Understand.
and they still enjoying the alcohol, but not for the Chinese society for the social way. After work, drink, they change already. They drink for themselves.
Understand. And from business wise, I mean, Europe.
Well, I understand your perspective, see Europe as a whole.
Yes.
But, you know,
Yes.
there are some differences.
Because I'm looking at you as a representative of EU.
Okay. I mean, France, for example, they drink less and less wine. The younger people,
Right.
bam, it went down. And COVID also had a big influence in our area. For example, you couldn't go to bars or restaurants, so you stayed at home. And of course, some people were used to it, so that they still consume spirits, or beer or wine, but a bit more at home. So some of these restaurants closed in Germany, a lot. And I think the same happened in Austria. I mean, Austria, Germany, in many respects are the same, although they drink more wine. But beer has a strong impact now in Italy, which nobody would think of. They have a lot of craft brewers.
Right.
And the craft movement is something to talk about. I mean, it had its heights, and now I think it's like in a plateau. So, I mean, just before COVID, every week you got 2 new brands of gin. So this is over. So for example, gin in Europe is on a stable platform, but basically it's not en vogue, it's not chic anymore. It's just basic thing. So a lot of these smaller producers of gin, for example, they just shut down, or they don't produce any gin anymore. So just a little bit. So that, and I mean, Spain has a total different climate than Germany. So of course the drinking habits are different there. So a lot of long drinks, or they invented this cold chocolate brandy in it.
Right.
This is something in Spain which German tourists learned, and then they brought it to Germany.
Right.
And at the moment, and also we have some discussions about naming things. So this, for example, is called Lumumba. I don't know why it's a name. But on the other hand, this was a president in Africa.
Mm.
I think he was killed or by the French. So you must not name a beverage after this guy. So this was a huge discussion in Germany. Unbelievable.
Mm.
So Europe is complex.
Right.
But in general, I'd say that the younger people are a bit more looking after themselves, drinking-wise,
Mm.
and spending their money on other things.
Right.
We also a little bit
Yeah.
internet stuff.
So one, I think maybe I'm kind of not asking this correctly, but what I'm trying to understand is that, let me put it as brutally as I can. Is it profitable to be in business today in the Alcobev industry in your respective countries?
Yes.
Yes.
And I don't mean primarily from a perspective of like the biggest brands. I'm not talking about the MNCs and XYZ only. I'm also talking about in general from someone who's a startup or someone who's a newer, what do you call, company. Because as you mentioned that almost 123 out of the 123 distilleries, close to 50 of them have actually come in the last couple of years. Which, right?
No, the 120 is now is the distillery. And so it's a few years ago, only 70.
This is what, so,
50, yeah.
So that's 50 of them have come in the last 2 years.
That's two
2
years.
to 3 years, assuming. Let's take in the last 5 years as well.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that if that's the case, then is it a profitable industry to
It's
be in?
very it's a little bit it's a big competition. So and also to make a whiskey, it takes time, and we have to think about long term. And cash flow is it's kind of like a problem.
Right.
Yeah,
Which is what I'm trying to get at. So is it a problem to stay afloat in today's day and environment in the business?
Yes.
But in Japan, they have one advantage. Japanese whiskey is known in the world, and it's known as an expensive whiskey. So if you start a new distillery in Japan, it's highly likely to have a higher profit if you start a new distillery in Germany, and we have more whiskey distilleries than the UK, for example, or Great Britain. And we have a long tradition in making spirits, so we have loads of, but it's unlikely that they will conquer a different market. And if you come from Japan and say, hey, I have a Japanese whiskey. Oh, I've never heard of this one. Oh, but it's Japanese. Yes, I buy it.
So you mean it's similar to the Indian single malt revolution where a lot of the Indian brands are doing extremely well in that respect?
Yeah.
Seriously.
So I really think it's a question of the explosion of choices. When I was younger, we had a few main brands that we knew. Like I worked for years for Johnny Walker, my favorite whiskey. But yet now there are thousands of whiskeys to choose from. It's across the board, not just the spirits industry. There are more people participating, and consumers have more choices, and they have better opportunities to explore. With the advent of social media, you have thousands of different opportunities every day to learn about something new. With the advent of social media related commerce, you can actually acquire these things. Beloved Amazon, you can get your favorite booze in 24 hours from halfway across America.
Right.
So it's changed the whole geography of the Alcobev industry in the US.
Right.
People used to have to go to their neighborhood outlet store.
Yeah.
Now they get online. They had 3 or 4 choices of whiskey. Now they got 400 or 500.
Yes.
That I think is a natural progression in terms of the product portfolio expanding. I'll tell you why I'm asking this and what I'm trying to get at. The reason is because I'm trying to understand whether are the international manufacturers and players also having as much of a challenge as the Indian manufacturers currently are. So that's what. So which is why I'm trying to get, what I'm trying to understand is from y'all is that is it as difficult as it is here? Because not just COVID, of course prior to COVID as well, things were extremely great, hunky-dory. And unfortunately some of the complex situations in terms of structure, regulations, we come to that a little bit later. So it's not really the best business to be in these days, I feel. Of course, the companies which are like the top 5-6 companies in India or maybe MNCs, they naturally, because of the depth, the distribution, the sort of R&D that they have, the sort of size and winning products already, it's great to be still doing this. But otherwise, it possibly can be a challenge.
If you look at these rise of gin in the last, 20 years, and when the first, Bombay were the first who made a new gin, and then the others hopped onto it. The advantage of gin, and this is one part of why we had so many gins, is it's made fast and it's cheap. Whiskey, on the other hand, as we know, at least in most countries in the world, it has to be matured for at least minimum 2 in Taiwan, but 3 mostly in other countries. So you need to invest some capital, you need some time, and then you can go on the market. And it's young, and most people don't think it's good at this age. That's the disadvantage for this type of spirit if you go in the spirit market. And what Steve said was absolutely right. These loads of choices. I mean, if you have a choice of 2 or 3 products, all 3 can go up this side. If you have 300, they all stay here.
So you need increased competition is also one of the reasons why they advertise.
And Germany, for example, is an absolutely saturated market. So we have a cake, and you take away a part of the other. You don't invent a new cake.
Yes.
At least in a saturated market like ours or the rest of Europe. Basically, Europe is a saturated market.
Right. So last point is that we have 140 crore people.
That's your advantage.
One of the challenges I think that's similar in the United States is we have 50 different state liquor authorities charging 50 different tax systems at least 3 different levels in each state. So if you want to come into the United States to do business, you've got to have somebody who understands how to navigate and negotiate and make a deal with all of these different things. And then you throw over that an overlay of cultural differences, age differences, demographics. You no longer can go to market with a single strategy. You have to have a California strategy, a New York strategy, a New Orleans strategy. Then you have to have a lawyer, an attorney somewhere, everywhere, and a tax person in every town. And we have this incredible 3-tier system where you have to enter the United States through an importer, and then through a distributor, then finally through a retailer before you get to the thing. So it's not as complicated as that sounds, but it sounds a lot to me like India in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
Perhaps the tax system is a little more restrictive here than it is there, but we still have a problem. 65% of every bottle of spirits in the United States is taxed.
Wow. Is it different in different states or that's?
Oh yeah, it's very different, even in different cities, because each city has its own local tax structure as well. VAT, for example, is added on at the end during the sale. So your base price increases 7, 8, 10, 20%, depending on where you are. So it can really affect how you do business. Complicated, you just need people to help you navigate through all of that. Having said that, you can do that because we have wonderful Indian spirits. Indian whiskey, for example, single malt whiskey, is exploding in the United States
Right.
because whiskey lovers love it. It's a great product. It's well made. It's well presented by the folks over here. So, and they're doing all right. But ask them, is it easy for them to do that? I'll guarantee you, they pay people like me to help them do it.
That's. I come back to that in terms of Indian products and shop. But is it the same in the taxation structure in China? How's it?
We are very simple. In Taiwan, we pay the import tax by ABV. Yeah, so it's simple.
And that's a blanket on the whole category.
For the spirits, because we joined the WTO, it's a trade part. Yes, so in Taiwan, even expensive whiskey, we may charge like $7 for the import tax. And of course, you need to pay the consumption tax, the 5%. So you can easy to buy the expensive stuff in Taiwan. They would rather to hand carry back.
So 40% or 40 ABV whiskey would cost the same tax. It doesn't matter if the whiskey was $20 or $2,000.
Yes. Only different is
Okay.
consumption
tax.
Yes, only 5%. But China is also simple. Even China is very big, have a lot of province. They charge like around like a 50% import tax. That's all.
Okay. 50.
Yeah, 50, but already have a 17 is a consumption tax.
I understand.
We pay the government, but we charge from the customer. So the 1/3 of income for the China government is for the customer tax. So it's quite simple, not like US, like India, very complicated.
Yes.
Yeah, in Japan, the tax is that is the volume and contents. And also that is not so expensive now. It's maybe spirits 1 bottle is around the $2. It's very reasonable. And also consumption tax is 10%.
Yeah.
But we used to pay a lot of money. At 1989, at that time, people pay 220% tax or maybe 150% tax for the bottle. So that is quite expensive. And after that, it's changing like a European way. And now it's very cheap. It's only $2.
Bhavya, I did not say that very clear. It's Taiwan is charged the import tax by ABV, but China charged by ex work price. Yes, but because China is big market, so they use AMP to support. So sometimes it's not like so terrible price.
But is it easy to actually set up and
Very easy.
yeah, a lot of support from the government, I'm assuming as well. Not really.
Because they want to make money from the customer tax, so they encourage the people to buy and consume.
Yes, yeah, because I think Chinese and Japanese as well, much like the Europeans actually as well, Chinese and Japanese both as well, they drink a lot, quite a bit.
We drink.
Yeah, I know. Of course, you guys are the traditional champions, I feel. Yeah, Germans, I think, especially when it comes to consuming beer, it's great. But EU
No, it's not great anymore. It's around about 90 liters per head per year. It used to be 140 in the 70s.
That's still a lot, 90. But so is it from an EU perspective as well? Is the taxation structure very different, or there is?
Well, if I get it right, if you export something, let's say from India or Taiwan to Germany, you pay an import tax, which is different to different goods. And then for spirit, it's clever to have a off-duty warehouse, which is not under duty or under bond. And then when you put it out of the warehouse, you pay alcohol tax, which is different in different countries in Europe. Germany is higher than, I think, Spain, and the Scandinavians are even more expensive. And Scandinavia is an extra thing because everything above, I think, 3.5% alcohol, 2.5% alcohol is only sold in state-owned shops, Systembolaget, and it's a bit more complicated. In Sweden, it's called this. But then, if you're in Europe, the easy thing is you can export easily to all the other European markets. So, for example, sometimes in the summertime, I'm not buying my oranges in the supermarket around the corner, but I order them directly in Spain because the guy said, we take them off the tree, in wintertime, for example, we take them off the tree and you get it next day via DHL.
Right.
Cheaper or less, or same price, but fresh totally. And you can do this with spirits as well. So sometimes I order spirits for myself in Spain because some of the brands I like, they have different varieties in Spain only.
Right. But this must have become a problem now with, of course, the UK stepping out of.
UK is a turmoil. Brexit.
But then, has that created a challenge in terms of doing ordering spirits, or even in terms of business for
the big companies? Yes, they build a lot of warehouses in Europe, and they have to do all this paperwork, which is a nightmare. I stopped ordering from the UK. Sometimes I see something which is special for the UK, a bottle. Maybe I buy it there and bring it out with my own. It's different. You can bring some stuff, but for us, UK, tax-wise, it's like India. It's a non-EU country.
Right. Of course. No, it's interesting. The reason is because what I'm understanding is that I think, of course, EU is naturally, as EU, is extremely easy because that's primarily what's happening with all of the products, not just spirits, because it all comes under one umbrella. Even China and Japan as well. I think it's US and India, I feel, that has a very similar sort of a structure in terms of their taxation.
There are a lot of common kind of pathways that it just sounds like deja vu, right?
Right.
It's really interesting, though. I think India appears to me to be more complicated.
Why?
As an outsider, I would think how much tax money could be made if they could come up with a simpler solution than the one you've got. If goods were able to move from state to state a little more easily. In the US, I think we can do that because it's, we could sell things in different states without having complicated authorities. But it still would be, from a producer's point of view, a dream situation to have one way of doing things as opposed to 50 different ones.
Yeah. So it's interesting and complicated. The reason is because there is a system which is called GST, which I'm sure you're aware of now in India, which is applicable to all products and services. Now, except alcohol or except spirits, ID. The reason is because, so for example, now if, as you know that when you create a new product, and I don't mean Alcobev, I mean general. Say for example today if you were to make
New shoes.
shoes or a shirt, so you can now actually, earlier you had to go and register it into different portals in respect of selling it to every state. But then when the GST was implemented and executed in India, then you can now actually just go to one unified portal, just get your GST certificates, you can register all of those things. And now similarly, like how you possibly have in EU, you actually can ship it to anywhere. But the reason why the excise laws or especially when it comes to Alcobev, there are a couple of reasons. Number one is because India, the open advertising of alcohol beverages is not allowed. It is obviously restricted from that perspective. Number two is that because it's a highly regulated market, hence there are certain challenges as well. And number three, and which is the biggest point where I feel that probably a situation like how you all have a very one tax being levied to everything is very difficult. It's because the highest revenue that comes to the state, the excise, is via alcohol. And that's the reason why, of course, there are associations, which the industry associations here, who have been really trying to push for a unified system. But then honestly, in practicality, I really don't think so. It's something which is going to get executed or it's even implementable, possible from a government's perspective.
And if it will be implemented, of course, it will be that they would not look at the lowest tax, but at the highest. So
possible, but also the same sort of scenario is also the case, like how you were mentioning about the number of products which are available. Now, there are so many products that are available across the price points. It's very difficult to kind of have like one blanket tax attached to the whole business. It's extremely difficult. And again, because of the regulations, like for example, just to give you an example, say for example, a beer which is costing like 100 rupees in Mumbai, all right, which is pre-tax. So say for example, 20 rupees is a tax. The same beer possibly in one of the other states in southern India, like a Tamil Nadu, will be far more expensive. If you go to Goa, it will be lesser than what you call 105 maybe, because the taxation is. These are just like ballpark figures.
We're still talking about one country, don't we?
Yes. So there's a very famous saying that it is 27 states in 27 countries in one country.
Okay.
When it comes to the Alcobev industry, but it's interesting. So that's why I think from a structure and regulation standpoint, I think we are on a very kind of a similar boat. But I think you all have a much better sort of scenario. Why do you think that a scenario like this, although I feel it's like a far-fetched, I think even when I have like what you call 4 generations after me as well, I don't think this might get implemented. I hope it does. But just for the case, if it does, what is the sort of benefit that you can have apart from only like what you call ordering and making it easy? How does it help?
From which point? Consumer or
One
producer?
single tax implemented onto a
Very simple,
nationwide.
less paperwork.
Right.
First, it's faster, it's more reliable, and of course, I mean, if you live in Goa by accident, or in Mumbai by accident, maybe you're jealous on the other guy because they pay less than you for the same product. This is unequality, still to the same country. So I think it's for everybody. It's easier if you have a reliable tax for everyone in the same country.
Understand.
And if you have a single tax and more good product from other countries would like to export to India because it's not so complicated.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about manufacturers in your countries and the opportunity of India as a market?
Yes. Is the meaning it's
Meaning, like, what do Japanese manufacturers think about the opportunity in the Indian market? I don't mean like a Beam Centaurian. Established.
food is very big potential. So everybody's thinking about that.
But do you think if a situation like this where there's one taxation policy would be very easy?
So, and I would like to export the good quality stuff to India because it's simple and with a limited quantity, no need to fill in so many documents. And if just like Bernhard said, internet is very public and transparency. They can check the price everywhere. Also, only in the Indian market, this place, in this province sell $5, that province sell $20. Then they will argue with the importer, say, why you sell me too expensive? You need to support us A&P. Then the manufacturer, distillery will say, oh, give up this market, too complicated.
Which is in fact what happens. I think it isn't so much about a different tax as it is having a unified, simpler system. For example, in the US, you could bring an Indian product into the United States. And it comes through a single portal to the alcohol tax, the TTB it's called. You get approval, the label's approved. You have to prove that the product is legitimate, that it's safe, and all of that. But once it's through the portal, then it can be imported to any of the states. There's just extra paperwork that's done, and the taxes will be different. But one of the problems that this has created is, and Bernhard's really right about this, is it's an inequality, but it's created an opportunity for crime, for corruption. We have very valuable bottles of whiskey only available in certain markets, in certain stores. $100 bottle of bourbon can go for $1,000 because of a false sense of scarcity that's created by the inequities within the system. And it's not to consumers' benefit. It's really not to the retailers or the producers' benefit. I mean, we make the whiskey, it costs us this much to get it in the country. So we're not getting that extra $1,000 for that bottle. All these people taking advantage of this complicated system are doing it. I think states, governments, authorities would make a lot more taxes if it were simple and easier to do, more transparent, a little more honest. Be less opportunity for corruption. So it's actually a really good free market is really, really good for reducing all the law enforcement costs and the side issues that come from the black market, the gray market.
Yes.
I don't know too much about it, but I believe there is a gray market pretty active in India, and that the government has a problem with that, just as we do. And that's probably true just about everywhere.
Great.
I mean, I don't know if there is a massive, like, sort of a grey market. See, the beauty about it is also that it's a very regulated market. And the good thing is that the state officials, the departments, XYZ, all of these people who are in that system, they are actually pretty very well connected in terms of understanding what is happening inside the business. So they're very well aware. But yeah, I mean, I understand the plus points of some of the things which can come within having a unified sort of a system, but I also see there are certain challenges also which possibly can come from that. But I kind of want to also just move away from the structure and the regulation to a little bit about interesting thing that you mentioned about like the Indian products which are coming into or getting exported into the international market. Why do you think that especially let's just take for example, the Indian single malts. The Indian single malts have really been basically kind of like getting renaissance, I think, globally. Why do you think products like these are becoming extremely popular in your countries? I want to start with you. How's the market for Indian products in Taiwan and China?
It's getting popular because whiskey drinker want to try different kind of a good quality whiskey. They would like to spend more but drink less. So they would like to try the good quality stuff. It means Indian single malt, the quality is good. And that's why it can survive in my market.
I understand.
I mean, first thing to mention is that Indian is very well known in Europe due to the Indian restaurants. We have a lot of them. Even in Nuremberg is only 500,000. I think we have 12 or 14 Indian restaurants, and what I can say, for good quality. Concerning the products, I mean, the first one was Ambrosia, then was Paul John, and now Indri for single malts, proper single malts. As she said, good quality, reasonable price. Old Monk is in the German market, the rum for ages. I remember back in the 80s when I was a bartender, we had for fun Old Monk rum from India. There are one or two gin brands as far as I know, but that's it. And basically,
Jaisalmer probably.
I can't tell you, honestly. And what I forgot to mention earlier about new emerging markets, new products, I think in the long run, it's not only price, it's always quality.
True.
So a clever Scottish whiskey guy once told me, Bernhard, it's the second bottle that counts. So, and that's the reason why they have a good price, they have a good quality, variety, Amrut, for example, or Paul John. So it's not only one product, it's a variety. And we have a whiskey show in 3 weeks in Nuremberg, which is big, for Germany, 15,000 people in 2.5 days, and you find all these 3 Indian whiskies there. The distributors are there, they're happy with that.
See, part of the key in America, at least, is when a company is transparent about what it does, when the quality is good and consistent, and as Bernhard says, it's the second bottle that counts. Whiskey is about exploring, and so you'll try everything once, but will you come back to it? And the one thing that's happened with Indian whiskey is that people do come back to it because they've discovered that it's very high quality and good value for money as well. So we're really quite lucky with that. It is also partly this modern culture of discovery, just wanting to be the new, the now, the next, the kind of front of things. I often wonder, many of the botanicals used to making gin, for example, are Indian. But how many Indian gins can I buy in the United States? And they love gin. With 600 and 700 gins now in the US, some of them should be Indian gin, made with Indian ingredients by people in India. And I think people buy it. Why not? I think that's true of other Indian products as well,
Right.
but particularly things like that. Interestingly enough, 2 of the most popular gins drunk in America are Old Raj and Bombay, and neither of them are made here.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's very important, but also it's interesting about the character. Each is a different character, each country or each distress, and also India is very warm, so it's maybe maturation is faster. So and also today you taste it. It's one of the Indian. It's single malt, and that one is I told about that. It's like 1970s, 80s, like kind of like Irish whiskey. It's non-peated, so non-peated and feeling about the barley, and also barley is coming from.
There's some peated. Amrut is doing some fusion stuff and so on.
Yeah,
No, but he's talking about this one specific whiskey that he tasted today.
That one is non-peated. It's a style. It's like a 1970s. It's Irish whiskey. So that one is I remember. So I tasted it before, like an old bottle, old label, old Jameson. So that one is very interesting about that, and also coming from local barley. So
Understand. But is it in Japan as well? Are Indian whiskies doing quite well?
yeah. Yes, it's getting popular. Yeah.
So tell me one thing. Do you think I understand the concept that of course it's a discovery where a journey of any mature sort of a consumer, they will taste a lot of the products which are available in the market, and then once they've upsell to that level where now they are like, okay, you know what, my taste buds have developed that much, and now I want to see what the other countries also have to offer. Similar to, like, for example, how the Japanese whiskey about like I think 7 or 8 years back, maybe a decade back, they really came onto the scene, and then they won number of competitions, and suddenly they were like globally there was a lot of expression of interest in that, right? So do you think India or Indian whiskies are going through that renaissance now?
I feel with modern high tech, it's really difficult to make a bad quality stuff. Of course, the master blender is important, but I should say people spend money more smart. And we would like, like some countries, whiskey, the price increase a lot, and which not make very sense. So they would rather to enjoy the good quality of whiskey with a reasonable price. So Indian whiskey have a good quality and with a reasonable price. Why not just swap to this category?
Right. Understand.
Yeah, well, I think, well, for Europe, I'd say Indian whiskey is still an exotic product. Most people don't know that you are the nation with drinking the most whiskey in the world or producing most whiskey in the world. Indian whiskey, they make whiskey? We do whiskey. So it's just a new concept still. And the next thing, what I think to get consumers is also how you design your products. For example, I had the pleasure of being at Paul John 3 years ago or 4 years, I can't remember. I like the whiskey, but I don't think that the bottle design, for example, is suitable for European market. It doesn't approach the consumers. So maybe you should think about these things, Amrut, the labels are also interesting, to be polite. The whiskey is good. So you have to focus a little bit also what's needed in the market. Talk to people making consumer tests, what so on. But the question is now, can they deliver? I mean, if suddenly all of Europe wants more Indian whiskey, can they deliver? That's one question. And of course, never forget, it's a saturated market. And if I'm a new consumer, I would probably go first, let's think, where does whiskey come from? I started drinking whiskey. Well, let's try a Scottish whiskey first. So Indian is then the next step. Or you do it with brand ambassadors, you do it via education. So you have to invest money, of course, in the market. Then there's a good chance, as long as the product, second bottle, will go on and will.
Yeah, so that's interesting as well. That's also something that I want to know. Say, for example, now today, if Indian manufacturers would have more SKUs, more broader whatever portfolios and more numbers available in your respective markets, then do you still think that they would have a lot of takers? One of the reasons why I feel also a lot of the products, not just Indian, in general, a lot of the, as you mentioned, the exotic products, right? It's viewed as an exotic product. It's a small batch whiskey. The numbers which are available are not really as high as what you possibly get for any other scotches, blended scotches or malts and stuff like that. But if they were to make very high numbers available, say for example, 15,000 bottles, 20,000 bottles, 50,000 bottles available in your respective markets, there will still be takers? And would they still enjoy the same level of popularity?
I think you have to worry about a balance, because you have to have a consistent, dependable core range that people can identify with, understand this is a quality product. And then the different SKUs that you add can be ways to build interest, build the brand, expand the marketplace. But you do that from a good, solid, consistent base. You take some of the great brands in the world, Johnny Walker, for example, one of the world's largest selling Scotch whiskies, and yet their core range, absolutely dependable, predictable product. But do people buy all the wonderful other things they make? Yes. Very
No,
much
I mean to say, even if it's just one product, say for example, if it's product A of an Indian whiskey, today maybe they have like very less numbers available in the market. Tomorrow, if they were to make like 50,000 of that product A available in your market, would it still be as exotic and as interesting and would sell well?
Well, if you have more of that, the exotic part will go down sooner or later. Then the quality has to talk to the consumer. But what we must not forget at the moment, for example, everybody's suffering in Europe. I mean, economy is going down. We have this war going on next to us. So people are not, well, there are always rich people who spend zillions on spirits, but the average is at the moment a bit timid, spending money. And if they spend money, I think they would be more conservative, go for that, the things they know.
the dependable products.
Yeah, dependable.
At a reasonable price.
Yeah.
And I think right now, the Indian single malts in America are dependable for certain, and the price is pretty reasonable, but they still are premium or super premium products. And there might be a space for that. to find something of a more consumer friendly price wise. There might be. I think it would be a good gamble to try that, and having more of it, of course. But part of our problem in the US is our import system is designed, you almost have to guarantee that you're going to sell it before you bring it into the country, because you'll be stuck with excess inventory. And so people are timid about new products and exotic products for that very reason. What do you do with a warehouse full of whiskey from Sri Lanka, for example? But that nobody, they may make wonderful whiskey out of that. They might, but what do you do? How do you market that? How do you get that to people? And part of the problem is the old ways of doing that are not the ways that communicate with modern consumers. You can't have just a blanket advertising program, a marketing program that one size no longer fits all. You have to be really active. One of the ways Paul John, for example, has done so well in America is they had a very strong consumer activation program. Liquid to lips. People were tasting this product in lots and lots of venues and places. People got to understand it as, oh wow, this is really wonderful. I want to buy one, and then develop a fan base. But that takes a lot of effort, a bit of money too to start it with.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, each market is different, but it's in Japan. I think it's the first time I tasted Indian single malt, and I was surprised. At that time, it's whiskey. Talking about whiskey, like a Scotch, Irish, Japanese, American. So Indian whiskey. So that is when I taste Indian whiskey, the quality is so surprised, and also it's maybe I think it's using sherry cask or something, and also I think it's a long maturation, but very good quality. And also it's Japanese people, such kind of quality is beloved. So, and Japanese market is whiskey is a little bit mature, but also is people willing to spend money. It's good quality. So I think it's sound like a good character. It's very, very interesting. So,
Understand. What are people actually drinking in your respective countries? I mean, when you say, actually, it's very interesting what you guys mentioned that there are challenges economically, I think, in a lot of countries. I think, of course, Japan also is facing its own challenges when it comes to the economy. EU, I know for sure as well. US has also been very challenged. What is a consumer today drinking in China?
China and Taiwanese consumer now, they try to get the balance with inside and outside, the good healthy and happy. So they will choose a good quality, maybe not heavy drink, and have a good memory. So let's go back to the Indian whiskey. I participate some exhibition like a California wine exhibition.
Mm-hmm.
They invite. I think it's maybe some association. They just invite the California winery together or French winery together. If India, the whiskey industry can have a small group and they can have exhibition to promote their culture and their house specialty for their whiskey, it can help the local customer to understand and experience that because I believe India have a lot of good culture, the art, even around the world, women do the yoga. You know, these and some silk, these stuff, even can combine with the culture, whiskey, and how to make a good whiskey together and present a culture to the different new market. And it's easier to get the people to learn because especially the young consumer want to use the social media. They want to have a new subject to talk.
Understand. It's very similar to what Steve is actually mentioning that if you actually have ground activations, then it just makes it so much more.
I have a wonderful idea how to approach all middle-aged women in Europe. Make a special yoga whiskey.
Yes.
You know, we've talked a lot about consumers and producers. Something I like to focus on because it's It's the secret ingredient. And that's everybody in the middle. The people who move it from place to place, the people who handle it, people who sell it, the sales force for the distributors, for example. I'm involved in a lot of particularly whiskey education for those people. I do a lot of things with consumers as well. But when I have a person out in the field, here's my Indian single malt, I'd like you to have it. What does that person say? How does that person back up the product? Display it for people, help the retailers and bartenders get it in front of the consumers to begin with. And that's really an important key. For example, I do, and most of us in this room do it, participate in a lot of international spirits competitions. We've done it here. And those people that I'm talking about benefit greatly when they know that a panel of experts, and I don't like the word influencers, but people who really know what products are about, when they have the seal of approval from legitimate, competent judges and competitions, it gives them the ammunition they need to sell the product. No consumer buys a product because it has a gold medal hanging on a ribbon, pretty much at all. But the people who sell it to the consumers are impressed by that, and they back. They can offer the product with confidence. So we've got to really understand that if Indian producers want to reach the Chinese market or the American market or whatever, they've got to reach that middle ground of the people that will actually help the product move. Product education, product training, advertising for the industry itself, good print media for the industry itself, not so much for the consumer, but in India you say...
I'm just trying to understand how that is even possible. Say, for example, now, at the end of the day, everything is about business, right? Now, in terms of business, everybody has numbers. Now, from a brand perspective, from a manufacturer's perspective, while the product and the quality is great, at the end of the day, for everyone, there is a profit and loss sheet. There is number crunching, which is always going to come into the picture. Now, examples like Amrut and Paul John is great. The reason is because they've obviously already established themselves into an international market, and they already have like barrels which are stored away, which they know strategically they need to bottle in order to create that demand in the market. But for someone who's relatively new into the industry, they might not have that level of their financial power and backing to do a lot of the activities that you guys are talking about.
Nothing wrong with coming together as an industry group, partnering with your people who are your competitor, your friendly competitors, to come together collectively to do that. We send trade missions, for example, from the U.S., the Distilled Spirits Industry Council sends trade missions abroad to talk about exporting our products. I'd love, for example, the Indians would buy a lot more American bourbon. I have a personal interest in making that happen. And I would love to find a way for us to have bourbon come here, not just the big companies, but more of them, and give it more choices and help people be a part of that. So there may be a way to do that. There may be a way for industry publications, industry groups to showcase these products and to educate on a more open format, so that you could do that. I don't know. I mean, it's a great...
I'm sure they must be doing stuff like this, because otherwise it's difficult for them, for these products to actually not make way into those markets. Yes, not everything, but yeah. Bernhard, you...
Yeah, I mean, I think you always need one or two pioneers in a market. So, as I know the German market best, Amrut was first, then came Paul John. And now recently, well, last 2 years, I think, suddenly Inri is the new kid on the block. And of course, they profit from the efforts the pioneers have done. And this is for all the smaller ones. So if the market gets a bit more educated, more saturated, then the first consumer will say, Amrut, I've had this for years, but this is a new Indian whiskey. That's interesting. That's for sure something that will happen. But also, what I forgot to mention earlier, it's always small movements. But for example, I recently was at a lecture of Rémy Martin Louis XIII in the German market in a restaurant, and there was a guy who is the chef of the head waiter in a 2-star Michelin restaurant, and they are going regional. So besides champagne, they have champagne, but they have more regional sect, and the spirits, besides 1 or 2, they're all regional. Because, well, we have a lot of distilleries. So the whiskies they have are German whiskies from not so far away from the restaurant. So they really emphasize on that. And it's also something which is a little movement. Well, parallel to, well, I'm curious, I will explore the world.
Right.
But in some aspects, we have this as well. So on this whiskey show I mentioned earlier, I think we have at least 20 German distillers hanging around and trying to sell their product. Some of them are good, some are not. Yeah, but
that's natural. Yeah.
You need a pioneer in the market, and you can rely on his force. And I absolutely agree. These people should work together. Being there I remember years ago there was in Berlin. There's a rum show, the only rum show in Germany, the big one. And Mauritius for 2 years had a stand. The whole island of Mauritius. I think there are 6 or 9 distilleries. So they had a stand together. They shared the costs, and they worked together and bring Mauritian rum to Germany.
Understand.
I think it's maybe I think it's that one is talking about single malt, but single malt in Scotland it's also whiskey and tourism. Whiskey and tourism, and also it's when I visited 40 years ago in Scotland, it's not so many people visiting their distillery, but the malt whiskey is getting popular. Many people is going there, and also many people went to Islay. And also Islay and tasting and also smoky flavor or these kind of things. I think it's one of the idea. It's Indian whiskey is also making different price, but maybe I think selling is a cask. Cask for is private people, and private people or maybe it's private people. They're interesting to visit. It's that is my cask and also very interesting is how to make it, and also price. So it's maybe I think it's they will visit, and also is the understanding of the terroir, and also people, and also culture and history as well. So same is living.
Right. No, it's interesting. The thing is that it's interesting you talk about tourism. The reason is because some of the established players in the industry today in India, they already actually do that. Like, for example, Bernhard mentioned that he went to the Paul John distillery. So some of these distilleries, not just in this sphere, but yes, the ones who've become really popular, they already have started offering a lot of these tools since the past 4 or 5 years and things like that. So they are already looking at broadening. For example, now if you talk about wine in India, so Sula Vineyards was one of the first ones, and I think they are probably the most successful model which actually shows what really wine tourism is. Because not just from being a good, successful vineyard, they actually really pioneered, I feel, the concept of what wine tourism was. And especially to a customer who's based in India. You know, it's very difficult at a time when not too many people were really getting hooked onto wine, so they were actually the pioneers of that. And then came a point where they created that whole experience in such a way that with the stay, with the whole wine tourism, with the food, with the hospitality, it actually has become a completely different division of their business, which is now being replicated with so many other wineries as well.
You mentioned this because if you visit Kentucky, you will see the same thing. 20 years ago, the bourbon industry wouldn't have this. It wouldn't do whiskey tourism. Now it's a profit center for them. A profit center, actually making a lot of money from having the whiskey tourism, as is Scotland. Speaking of which, Paul John won major award, best visitor center in the world for whiskey.
I think Paul John and Ambrosia should pay us money. I feel we're talking so much about it.
Well, what's good is good.
Just
what's good is good.
Just yeah. What are the other?
I mean, probably it's not so interesting for a drinker to visit the factory of McDowell. Or else
I don't even think that they would probably do tourism in that.
yeah, no, for sure not. But what you started to mention, I think it's absolutely right. I mean, in Taiwan, there's Kavalan. I think they have 1 million visitors per year. Outstanding. And if you do it right, you have ambassadors for your product.
Exactly. Yeah.
Unpaid ambassadors, the best ones. I mean, I had a lot of funny experiences in Scotland, and I like to talk to the rest of my life about it because it was so impressive. And that's a key, absolutely. But of course, well, I don't think a whiskey enthusiast from France, Spain, or Iceland will travel to India and visit all the distilleries. I mean, this would be really the crazy guys because they're far away. But if you're in a country like Japan, it's a bit, or in England, it makes more sense. Or US, Kentucky Bourbon Trail. I mean, one day
people will do it. They will do it. I think, if I were dreaming right now, I'd love to take a number of Indian producers to America and just show them what we have and how Americans do it. I'd really like to bring American producers who'd like to distribute in India here so they could meet people like you and other folks to understand how the market works and to visit. And I think the companies that are successful, Indian companies that are successful in America right now, are companies that have done that. As in Taiwan, the Taiwan folks are very, very good about getting the right people over to see what they have. And a good idea. There must be some wonderful sort of industry magazine that could kind of oversee this, right?
Yeah, point taken. Yeah.
Maybe I mean, why not? I mean, you get the industry to pay for it, so it could be good for everybody.
That's right. What about what are the product categories that are growing the fastest in China and India? Like, if you could just give us an overview of China and Taiwan.
Because customer purchase behavior change in China, they use online. So
No, but what are they drinking? Like, for example, categories, the growth wise, is it whiskey? Is it gin?
RTD.
Oh.
Yes, and even like you are easy to see the convenience store. They have a lot of RTD. So it means the new trend. They drink RTD now because we just talked about something yesterday. Couple years ago, we participate in another competition at WC. They sell a lot of gin, and we think who drink the gin? But gin be the trend, and then I just feel that another trend is coming. But only one thing different change is the quality. Yeah, so now it's in my market RTD.
RTDs.
So
RTDs now are good. When they first came out, they were average sort of products, but now they're really high quality.
I think they're doing really well in Japan.
Yeah, it's the same. It's RTD.
Yeah.
It's getting bigger, and also it's whiskey. We drink in highball, but also it's some like highball RTD, and also gin and tonic,
Yes.
and many. It's many quality. It's,
I think the Suntory Highball is doing extremely well.
yeah, but not only Suntory, also the craft distillers is making its local highball.
Yeah, because recently when I was in Japan, all 7-Elevens, all the malts, I could see so many of them, especially GNTs and especially the Suntory Highball.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many takers, international people especially, who just like pick it up and they would actually go. Yeah. But in terms of other categories, how they are they plateaued in Japan or they still a rise? Or are they increasing?
Increasing is maybe stable. It's even maybe whiskey and gin is also increasing a little bit, but mostly stable. But
And it's not
like that.
a great increase. Okay. Europe?
I think that's divided. So in general, I'd say it's stable and you're happy when it's not going down. There are some RTD things, but in some countries, in the UK, for example, they have an extra tax if it's too sugary.
Mhm.
So Coca-Cola, for example, has less sugar in the UK than in Germany. No, Coca-Cola is the same, but some other Sprite, for example. So in Germany, we have an extra tax on Alcopops. So those stuff taste like lemonade, but has alcohol. It's extra tax to prevent the youth from drinking it. But at the moment, I don't see one product being on the strong rise. Vodka is still stable on a high point. Whiskey is going up a little bit, but small. I mean, and also the other countries, I think most of the industry in Europe is happy when it's stable.
So we've had a surge in agave spirits, like tequila and mezcal being one of them. But actually, agave made in other places is very, very good, and I think there's a future for that. I think really the area that I like to talk about in America is the advent of what's called the American single malt, and we've established rules and regulations, definitions for a unique single malt made in America, which is not trying to be Scotch. It's not trying to taste Japanese. It's not trying to be Irish. It's trying to be uniquely, geographically representative, kind of a terroir for whiskey. I'm not sure where that's going to go volume-wise, but it's certainly really hot at the moment. Really, really hot at the moment. I think we had this 20 years of enormous growth in the bourbon industry. Huge numbers of new production facilities have been added. I don't think it's going to go down, but I think it's going to level off because it's kind of got to a crescendo. We had a gin. Gin kind of goes up and down depending on who's drinking it. The one thing I never really see is rum making a lot of movement. It's very popular. It has a cult following, sort of. But again, it just hasn't really, hit. I think beer right now is in decline. Some of the better craft beers have kind of disappeared for a while, and I don't know. It's lost its sexiness. To me, that's a lot about what drives stuff in America. It's like what's cool now for us, So I don't know what that's going to be. As far as RTDs, I tasted something here. I think you served it to me. It has mango in it. It's absolutely delicious.
Good.
I don't drink that stuff, but it's perfectly made.
Yes. If I'm not mistaken, and again, I would not like to say something which would be factually incorrect, but if my memory or if my understanding and knowledge serves me right, then that's possibly an RTD which is being developed in India and possibly only available for the Indian market because it's very specific in terms of what flavor. Of course, I will double check that and we'll put it down on the screen right now. But if I'm pretty sure that's what factually is correct. But it's interesting you speak about agave spirits because I just like to give you guys a small picture of where India is, and that's the reason why I was asking about where the market is growing. Because in India, of course, as you know, almost 60-65% of the country is a whiskey drinking country. Always has been. We love our whiskeys. We're really good. But a few years back, I would say about like 4 or 5 years back, the gin really exploded in the market, which is the reason why from originally where there were only imported gins which were available into the Indian market, we started obviously getting a lot of local gins using local juniper, using local botanicals, and those became really interesting. So now I think I'd say that at least, I don't know the exact numbers, but at least 10 to 12 of them, which is really popular. But gin market also is still okay. The hottest one, which is actually growing, is tequila and agave spirits, and even mezcal for that matter. Of course, we have to call them agave spirits because we can't really technically call all of them tequila because of the GI tagging as well. But then, yeah, that's one of the most. But is tequila something which is like sipping tequila, and tequila as a spirit is interesting even in Taiwan and China?
Yes, tequila have a royalty drinker. Indeed. I just want to say, I believe soon, because I build up the distillery now, and
Yes.
I believe ESG will be very important issue. In the future, the customer care about the environment. They will looking for some product, treat the environment friendly, and maybe more community help each other. I think in the next trend, not only quality but also ESG will be important topic.
Understand. Yeah, I think internationally, I think definitely MNCs are doing a lot in terms of sustainability, because that's something which is a mission which is very important. So yeah, I think that goes. Even the consumers also, I feel, have become
Yes.
very interested about
Yes.
products which are sustainable. Am I correct to understand? Like in most of your markets,
You take agave spirits, for example.
right?
The agave is a very sustainable product. It's environmentally very friendly, very good. It conserves water. It uses very little pesticides and fertilizers. There's everything in, not so labor intensive.
And not need too
But
many water.
You can convert it to high fructose syrup, which can be used for thousands of different things besides making alcohol. So you've always got a market for the byproducts of agave growing, and then you've got the fibers.
Yes.
You can make furniture.
Yes.
You can make cloth. I mean, it's actually a dream product for
That's good.
environmentalists, and it can taste good too, really good.
Let's come now to Indian products. Some of you have obviously tasted and are very well exposed to Indian products over the years, specifically more from an Ambrosia perspective and the Ambrosia Awards perspective. Where do you think the quality has been from where it was earlier to where it is today?
I've been doing this with you for 8 or 9 years, and I see nothing but improvement. Every time I taste whiskey when I come to India, it gets better and better and better and better. Gin, better and better and better and better. Not that it was bad to begin with, but it's certainly the quality is there. And it's very enjoyable. So I think from that perspective, it's, a winner's market really.
Tanaka, I think this was your first experience with Indian products, at least a wider range. What did you think of
I think
Indian
it's,
products?
it's better than a salt. And of course, I know it's a many different kind of whiskey, but its quality is very good. So, but its sound is very Indian style. So that is kind of like identity. So
Is that a good or a bad thing? It's good that they have a unique identity.
yeah, it's good. It's good. It's so each country is each flavor and taste.
I understand. Right.
Yeah, well, when I try to think back when I first experienced Indian whiskey, some of these things were, well, I wouldn't say disappointing, but the idea of that's a whiskey did not spring up in my mind immediately. So in the recent years, this has changed a little bit, in my opinion. So it's more easy drinkable whiskey. When I told you the story, we're running a whiskey club in Germany. It's the oldest whiskey club in Germany. We're celebrating our 35th anniversary at the moment. And last year we made a mix of Indian whiskies, single malts from the companies we already mentioned a few times. And yeah, some years ago I bought me this bottle of McDonald's #1, and I sacrificed it to the tasting in the beginning. And of course, this bottle was compared to the others really very cheap. And still, this was a very nice, elegant dram. Even we used nosing glasses, but I would say, well, tumbler, ice cube, hot climate, wonderful, easy drinking, good, very well done. They don't have to hide behind anything. I mean, they sell a lot, so it can't be this bad, but it was very good. So I think there's a development as far as I can say. What we don't know is all the other funny local spirits. I mean, when we've been to Goa, we tried this stuff they made from cashew nuts. I think this is an acquired taste.
Yeah. I mean, those are the local products which actually are consumed by, I would say, people who are in a certain demographic and economic strata.
Okay.
But then, having said that, much like most of the other countries as well, the government now actually, I think there is GI tagging if I'm not mistaken, but Fenny is also something which is being pushed a lot by the government as well now.
I mean, one example from Europe, there's an island in Greece called Crete.
Okay.
And they have a local spirit called raki, which is not raki like in Turkey with anise. It's like a grappa.
Mm-hmm.
So it's made from Tresse, from the rest of the wine production. And of course, I mean, they have strange laws. The first 24 hours, what you distill, you don't have to pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
It's an old law.
Right.
And of course, there are little producers, and some of them have really just debatable quality. So I asked him, "What's with the foreshots?" And he looked at me, "What kind of foreshots?"
Right.
But now some people started in Crete not making a Treste like a grappa, but they started making eau de vie. So they made a spirit out of the wine in the same character. So they involved the quality, bam,
Right.
and single grape variety. So even if you have a local traditional product, there's the possibility of making something which is really approachable, which is really very good. So I think with this funny stuff, it's called funny, no?
Fenny.
Sorry, okay. Fenny is a funny stuff. I think if you do it properly, you can make a wonderful spirit.
So I think there have been a couple of attempts by much bigger, larger companies to possibly make it a little bit more nationwide. But yes, it is acquired taste. So there have been a lot of local efforts like these in certain areas to surely popularize, like similar to what you were saying about the culture, and then also taking that traditional spirit to a much broader base. Does Taiwan and China also have a lot of these local sort of spirits which really do well?
Yeah, that is a trend, localized spirit. And I believe that the mainland China and Taiwan, just like India, we are agricultural country. We have a lot of good crop. We can produce a localized spirit. So I'm pretty excited to see next year come here have a more and more Indian product. I remember the first time here, just only have a bottle in India spirit.
Right.
Then have an India whiskey, and now I test this year I test Indian single malt. The quality is good and stable, and also have a very surprise good RTD. Even some flavor gin, a little funny, but tastes good. So I believe in the future is a more and more good product and produce in India will come, because we have a lot of agriculture, these stuff compared with the others. We can have a more opportunity to add the value for this product and create a good. People work hard can create a very good product too.
But you have this Chinese specialty, which is called Baiju, which is also an acquired taste, and they're very big.
Yes.
But we try to swap some Baiju people to drink these young stuff, because Baiju consumption we still think is for the older people. And
Still, it's big, isn't it?
yes, because
Malta is one of the.
Malta is only for social place.
So you never know where this goes.
Yes.
30 years ago, you could buy one brand of mezcal in the
Yeah.
United States.
Yeah.
It had a worm,
Oh, yeah. Everybody knows about it. Yeah.
the Gusano Rojo,
Yeah.
the red worm. And now there are hundreds
Yes.
of brands of mezcal. They're being drunk all over the world. And this was an obscure, local, and not particularly tasty, acquired taste sort of spirit.
Yeah.
So you never know how entrepreneurial you can be and maybe introduce the world to a new kind of trend and cash in on that. And it could be extremely profitable. So I don't know. I would encourage Indians to think like that, because there must be a lot of different things around here that could easily do that. I mean, what percentage of the world's population are Indians? A quarter?
A lot. More, there are about 7 to 8 million people, I think, in the world. If I'm not mistaken, we are about 1.4 billion. So I would say about
Why isn't the world
10%.
drinking McDowell's whiskey? Maybe
Because they drink it all themselves.
yeah.
They don't export it to us.
Maybe that's what I'm getting at is maybe thinking outside the box a little bit, because I think India has a lot to offer the world that, because you're so big and such a great market already, you don't necessarily think about that.
Yeah.
But you ought to,
True.
because I wouldn't do it. I certainly wouldn't do it.
Sometimes the volumes probably don't suffice, maybe because that's also probably one of the reasons.
I do have a question to Tanaka-san.
Yeah.
Is there a historical or traditional Japanese spirit? I mean, there's sake,
Yeah.
but that's not a spirit in
It's
mind.
like a rice wine. It's that's fermentation. It's not this rich.
Yeah, but you don't have any spirits.
We have
traditionally.
spirits. It's called shochu. Shochu.
Shochu.
Mostly it's south of Japan.
Yeah,
And the shochu is getting popular. And, but of course, now it's everywhere in the drinking shochu. But shochu is it's a local drink. And now it's shochu producer is making gin as well.
Yes.
I think it is another example of a wider growing market in the world. I've tasted in the last 5 or 6 years some rice whiskeys. Now, it qualifies, it's a cereal grain, and if it's produced according to the canon for making whiskey, it can be called whiskey if you follow basic rules.
Right.
But these are delicious, also sustainably, environmentally sustainable. And I predict that at some point rice whiskey will come onto the scene and probably explode, because it's easily made, it's cheaply made, it's good tasting, it fits a wide range of palates. The ones I've had at least have been award winning actually. So
He doesn't like the idea because then it will be less rice for sake.
this is, you can use broken rice, for example,
Yes.
which you wouldn't use for other things.
But I think, net, I think we require a lot more evangelists who can invest a lot more money into these categories to probably be the past pavers, much like how some of the Indian single malt manufacturers have been. But where is it that you guys see like the future of the markets in your respective country? Like, where do you think Japan and its Alcobev market is heading for the future?
And for future, our Japanese market, yes, it's there. Of course, it's there. It's an alcohol market, but it's young people again. It's less and less drinking. And also, it's now it's no alcohol, or lower alcohol. It's a situation is I have a quite long experience. It's whiskey business, so it's a little bit similar like a 1990s. So, but is maybe after that is a whiskey boom is coming back. So, but is I think the trend is now I think it's a big name and brand and good quality is established. Is more and more it's a bigger name, and also it's standard products. It's maybe it's a big difference I think. So it's a big name, it's brand, it's maybe successful in the business, and also standard is very good quality. So, but I think it's interesting.
Sure.
But how to focus?
How about
My market, we face the issue is the population reduced and less baby and more older people. But luckily in me, they have a more money resource.
yes.
So I believe in the future they will focus with a good quality alcohol, and not like a pastime. They drink a lot, try to get drunk.
Yes.
They more focus enjoying the good moment.
Understand.
Yeah. So I think alcohol business still exists, but it will change.
I understand. What do you think, but the percentage of growth will be roughly in maybe say like the next 5 or 10 years?
You say the value or volume?
Yes, volume.
I think our value was still going up, but volume was going down because the economy in China is not very good, and we we face, I believe all the people sit there face the same issue.
Yes,
But I still think the industry can keep produce. Then one day when the good time come back and we have older stuff to drink.
I understand. How about your?
Well, I agree with these things that some of the younger people maybe don't start with alcohol at all, or a bit less. And I think, well, as said earlier, saturated market, a certain share, it won't go up very high, but you never know what's happening. For example, there's a thing called Aperol Spritz. Are you familiar with that? It's Aperol, it's some mineral water, and it's some sparkling wine. Sometimes they add a drop of lemon juice, but basically was drunken in Italy for ages. Small. Then it came to Germany. Campari, Aperol was successful. Then Campari bought it before it was a competitor. They augmented, I don't know, 1,000% or something from I don't know 10,000 bottles to 150,000. So woof. So it's like a pandemic. I mean, it's over the top at the moment, but it was like this. And of course, if people drink that, they don't drink anything else.
Right.
I mean, it's a soft drink. It's a bit alcoholic. So everybody wanted to reinvent their own Aperol Spritz. So there was varieties.
Of course.
But, yeah. So
They're doing it.
and if the next thing comes around the corner, which we don't know yet, and people suddenly think it's the best thing to mix Coca-Cola with Red Bull and 25-year-old single malt, and that's the big thing.
Jäger bomb.
Or Jägerbomb. I mean, Jägermeister is the most successful German spirit, of course.
Yeah.
And they've worked hard for that. Yeah? With different ideas. So we never know. And then this, of course, there will a turmoil be in the market with these things.
So you look at a bit of the Aperol story, actually the Spritz story. It's a less alcohol, it's a little healthier, it is less expensive, it is much more social. And I think if we look at any products that are probably going to develop and grow, they're probably going to fit that model. Appeal to younger, be a little healthier, be a little cheaper, a little more dependable. I think you get a core group.
Yes.
What I see in America is a shrinking a little bit of the industry, because right now we have a lot of things that are gambles, flavors of whiskey, types of casks we use. A lot of stuff is very good quality. The price is too high. Or it's just crazy. Like, who would ever do something like that and buy 2 bottles of it? So it's really kind of a shrinking. Move to the healthy thing, move to the affordable thing, move to the dependable thing, and then have good distribution network. And I think we're watching in America as the major distributors are consolidating.
Right.
So we now have really 3 that do 95% of the business, which makes it hard for the little guys. But it is kind of where things are going. You can always also look at the wine industry as kind of, we call it a canary in the coal mine. In the old days, they used to take a canary, and if the gas level got high and the canary died, it was time for the miners to leave. Well, you kind of look at that in the wine industry in a way, because it was the first to do tourism. It was the first to do premiumization. It was the first to do terroir. It was a lot of things. And right now, a lot of really good wine out there. But the wine industry is really kind of going through some real pain at the moment. Unfortunately for them, but it's difficult. I live in the Napa Valley part of the week, and I watch this kind of labor pains every day, because it's up there. Everything is dependent on the wine industry.
Right.
And I kind of look at this and I say, it's gin next, it's whiskey next, it's vodka next. Beer sort of followed that path. So kind of look at that. I don't think it's a predictor, but I think it's there.
He has an advantage. You can make it probably without any alcohol, or which also occurs sometimes in Germany. Regular beer is about 4.5, 4.8 ABV.
Right.
And there's a term in Germany called Shank beer, and this is about 2.2.
Yeah.
So it has still a little bit of power compared to non-alcoholic beer, but you can drink 1 liter and have the effect of half a liter. So it's something what I like, for example, on a Sunday when I had a long Saturday, I start with one of these low ABV beers and it still tastes like good beer.
Tasty, affordable,
Yeah.
healthy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
Bernhard, you want to add something? I think you were.
Yeah. I think it's yes, it's in Japan you say it's about beer.
Yeah.
And but also it's talking about Germany below. It's also light. It tastes than American palate. So it's mainly people in trend with like healthy and less drinking. But also the other side is like cruiser is maybe whiskey lover is more deeper. So that one is also very interesting.
Yeah, I think
So
it's also.
people spend money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I was just going to make that point, that it is the journey of the entry of a consumer who possibly enters at a specific age where they start drinking a lot of beer and some of these lighter spirits, and then as they in the trajectory of where they are going in that journey of maturing is when they somewhere migrate onto the single malts or probably like the more mature spirits, and that's when the upselling happens because the phase of discovery starts, where they start discovering newer products, better quality, things which are more sustainable, things which resonate with story. Because I think a very important point is also the story that you have today in order to connect with, as a brand, to your consumer. Something which really has a great story connects a lot faster.
what he mentioned, a keyword was socializing.
Yep.
I think that's a keyword. I mean, nobody wants the depressed drinker at home drinking one bottle after the other like this, but being out with your friends, whatever kind of you enjoy, a little bit healthy, a bit less healthy, and there's a Saturday, and this Saturday maybe I'm absolutely drunk. Happens sometimes, but it's not the actual every Saturday.
True.
So socializing, that's a good point in my opinion.
The other thing about this that we also have to consider is this curve of discovery of taste and sophistication is one thing, but your pocketbook and your bank account have to mature as well. And as much as I've discovered that I like $10,000 bottles of scotch, I don't drink many of them. Well, if somebody else is serving it, I do. But you know, it's also the fact that the biggest segment of society is not being able to spend that kind of money on those sophisticated things quite as easily. So we have to find good quality and affordability in there.
Yes, I learned in that respect only that someone who actually starts, because the journey in terms of having beer and then probably like moving on to either a gin or a vodka, and then when you move on to in that curve to like a good blended scotch or like even an Indian single malt, all of those still can be explored in a very affordable range as well, as we already established. So that's what. But what I think is also happening is that because India is adding so many more consumers every year who are actually becoming legal in terms of drinking age. So I think from a future perspective, I think there's I mean, for the lack of a better word, very secure when it comes to the Indian Alcobev market. So that's the reason why I feel that every year having a younger population which is kind of migrating onto that demographic is always very, very fruitful. Great, guys. I think there's thank you so much for this great conversation. It is very interesting to learn about a lot of things that you guys mentioned, especially regulations where a lot of the Indian manufacturers or Indian consumers essentially feel that there are certain things which probably work differently in different parts of the world, and of course they might due to certain challenges. But especially in terms of regulations, what I'm kind of understanding after this conversation is that everybody is on a similar sort of a boat, except of course a scenario where, for example, the US and India, I think is very similar, still more dynamic, I guess, from that perspective. But that's one. Even consumers as well, from that perspective, what they like and what they don't like. So thank you so much
if there are any parting thoughts or any parting notes that you guys want to say, then maybe we can possibly close in on that. We'll start with Julie once again. If you want to say something just to close out.
It's a pleasure to join this conversation, and I wish more and more good India product can be tried in the future.
Hey, all right.
Yeah, I think the nice thing is that we here come together from different parts of the world.
Mhm.
The history of spirit is very long. The history of moving across is a bit short for many people. Of course, they were always soldiers going anywhere. But I mean, this is something which is very good. So we can interchange cultural-wise things and also interchange products and things like that. So I would encourage Indian people to come to Europe, find a good distributor, and try to bring your products into the market.
Understand.
So I'm a whiskey person, and whiskey is all about relationships. If you ask anybody who likes whiskey, why do you like it? Tell me about it. They always have a story about how they discovered their first Johnny Walker, for example, or the first golf game, or the first special award they won, or the visit to Scotland. It's all about stories and relationships. And what I've always enjoyed about coming here, and especially about today, is that we are building on those relationships and experiences, and it's becoming part of the story. In the end, you can tell people how whiskey is made. You can talk about the number of grains of malt, or the ABV, or the type of cask, but only 1% of the population buy it because of that. Everybody else is drinking it because of the experience and the enjoyment of it. And that is all about relationships. So thank you for that.
Yeah, future and potential, and of course, it's the quality of Indian spirits, and I felt it's potential and quality is getting better, and also it's future and potential is also market in India for everybody. So spirits producer, so very interesting about that. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks a lot. And we also encourage a lot more manufacturers from abroad if they would definitely like to enter the Indian market. Although, yes, it is a similar sort of a route that you were mentioning, which a lot of the brands who are trying to get in here already explored. But then, yes, as you said, similar to the US, it's all about navigating via those challenges. All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.